And we're live.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joy Newton. I work for Member of Parliament Bevington in Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. He's the Member of Parliament for the Western Arctic. Today we have an update on Voices North. As you know, we started beta testing with Emily Lawson, and she had some major issues that she was fighting the government with. And we have some updates now that just make my heart sing. I'm going to turn it right over to Emily because everybody knows who you are. Welcome once again, and let's hear on Friday the 27th of July 2012. What happened?
Well, I recently just went to Ontario to visit my mom and family, and while I was there I got a phone call from the NWT Human Rights Commission saying that we had an agreement. So while I was there, I got an email, and you have a copy of it. And essentially, before I left, I delivered the research. So I had spent 6 months with some help from George Lessard, learning how to do internet searches.
I saw you do that, yes.
And that's some piece. While there's lots of information on the internet, unless you know how to really fine-tune your searches, there's a lot of garbage out there too, and there's a lot of things that aren't the truth. So it took about 6 months, but I managed to find a lot of helpful research. So I put together a file of my findings and an awful lot of phone calls to Ottawa, and certainly discovered that this Conservative government seems to have bound and gagged an awful lot of civil servants. And every time I telephoned people like the Health Research or Health Canada, I would get referred to the website, which of course wasn't very helpful either. So it just took an awful lot of digging, and then I was fortunate that Poverty Law funded me for the case law research, and I discovered that there's very little case law out there, and what case law there is, I also put together in a file and delivered. And there was a case in British Columbia on Viagra, and as I understand it, he won. I then informed them that my lawyer had essentially stated that it was likely that if this goes to the Supreme Court, that an outcome could well be a drug of last option law. And
Emily Lawson.
yeah, so that was kind of interesting. I mean, I thought, that by now there might have been more people out there who would have had to have fought for cancer drugs or HIV drugs, and I guess it was heartwarming to find out that for the most part insurers are looking at what's in front of them, and there have been very few cases like mine. So I'm very heartwarmed to have gone to the drugstore yesterday and to walked out of there with my medication, and to have not had
You didn't have to fight.
Yeah, well, and I didn't have to pay cash,
Well,
which is really
out of
relieving.
$1,000, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it was. Partway into it, Shoppers Drug Mart was just fantastic. They did some research.
Yeah, let's give a shout out to Shoppers
The pharmacists
here in Yellowknife,
were
because they've
just
been
phenomenal,
really
and
excellent
Daryl
folks.
Donnelly stopped to talk to me. He's now
Our
an
MLA, yeah.
MLA. He was just great, and he encouraged me. Glenn Abernathy, my MLA, Dave Ramsey. There's just so many people to thank, including Dennis and you.
He is very pleased with your next step moving forward.
So many people in Yellowknife were just, I started sewing my quilts and doing.
Tell us all about this other side of your life that you had to create to get to this point.
I ended up reinventing myself out of necessity. So, my Canada pension income at this point is $700 a month, and my meds were $1,000. So I have always, done crazy quilting, and a lot of friends and family dropped off old dresses and ugly clothes. I cut them up and started making.
You make these great things. I've got one with an
bags,
on it.
And then I started making
quilts,
and
these are awesome. They're so northern. They are
yeah,
so
and I use a
northern.
lot of really bright colors. So It's mostly repurposed and recycled material.
And what
then,
you found out is it's not just an item. This is an art.
yeah, it is.
And that's what they've told you at the stores,
They
right?
have. So then I started making yoga bags for yoga mats, and people just love them because they don't have to drag their
so
bags.
Attractive too.
And then I've always made these little pouches with stones, and tourists have loved being able to take a piece of the NWT home with them. And then my son, incredibly,
we will talk to in a few minutes.
Wrote 3 songs about my story, and the first song got dedicated to my 3 doctors west from here, and Dr. Ayubi, Dr. Harrison, Dr. Stein in Edmonton, because I've been in his study.
What a great thing to do.
Yeah.
How many people say thank you to their doctor?
Oh,
I send my surgeons chocolates.
They
all the
so
time.
deserve to have a song dedicated to them, because I'm so lucky to be walking, and I'm so blessed to be able to walk now without spitting nails in agony, and I'm not having to nap every day, and my quality of life has just changed so drastically.
Emily, since the first day I met you in December,
yeah,
I know the difference.
Oh, and every week it gets better.
It stuns me. It really does,
Yeah.
because I know what it feels like to go from nothing to 100 in a minute, and
well,
it's just wild.
I think back to last October, I was on morphine contin, and while it allowed me to function, there were so many side effects, including constant nausea, not a good way to lose 30 pounds. This drug, while it does have a few side effects that I'm right now battling some very big skin issues, and that's part of why they've given me a year in a study. So my doctor will report my progress, and
you're the only person in the study.
I'm the only person. So basically, they're making a very big exception.
Wonderful.
Given that I'm in a very special circumstance, I waited a year. I got approved for this drug, Suboxone. And within 3 days, my life just did a 360. I was out of bed. I couldn't believe it. I was able to sit up all day without having to nap. That's huge. And I mean, even this trip, I went to Ontario in brutal, humid weather. And I was able to visit and like really visit with family and friends. And I didn't have to go and nap for 2 or 3 hours in the afternoon. And I was really there. And I mean, the visit I had 2.5 years ago, I had to not only nap, I felt like, you know, I was under a haze, and I was tired.
If you were taking
fatigued.
morphine, you were under haze.
Yeah.
I've been there. It's not fun.
So, and I think the best thing about Suboxone is that it doesn't create the cognitive impairment, and there really was a lot of cognitive impairment. I was so focused on hypervigilating about walking and worrying about falling. You know, when I'd see people on the street, I'd say hi, but it would be a running conversation because I couldn't stop. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just made a huge difference. It's not perfect. I'm, still got these skin issues that we're working on, but it's huge.
But you've had good news from human rights.
Yes.
You've had good news from extended healthcare.
Incredibly. So what they're going to do...
Let's keep this going,
Yeah.
you know.
So what they've decided is they're going to look at my progress, and then next July 2013, based on my progress, they'll look at my case and decide whether they're going to continue to exceptionally rule, or they will consider to put others who are in chronic pain also approve them for this medication.
Maybe they'll change that rule about you
Well,
have to be an addict
the whole
to take it.
the whole reason this happened was my research discovered was Reckitt Bencastor is the company that manufactured Suboxone. Suboxone is a drug called buprenorphine, and their specific makeup of Suboxone is buprenorphine with Narcan. So it's a very safe drug because it has Narcan built into it, so there isn't the same possibility for overdose. And when you're on a level of narcotic to deal with severe neuropathic pain, there's always a risk, and certainly with morphine, there's always a risk. Fentanyl, there's always a risk. So it's certainly the safest drug for me to be on. And buprenorphine, as I understand it, has been used since 1985 for post-back surgery. But Reckitt Bencastor came up with a specific drug. And it's got a couple of other different forms, subtexts. But Suboxone, as it is working very well, as I understand, for back pain. I've talked to a number of people around the world who are on it and also being controlled very well. How did we get into this problem? Well, Health Canada has Suboxone on the list only for addicts. So it's on the approved list
Why is that?
because Reckitt Bencastor, when they invented it, initially its prime target population was hard to treat heroin addicts, as I understand. So it works in the brain similar to methadone, but it's not the same drug, and it works very differently. So it is a very different makeup. In any case, they really, for whatever reason, and I have written to them and they've responded to me, they really have no desire to do the pain studies to get it on the list. They're happy to just have the drug out there for addicts. How did we get into this problem? Well, Health Canada does not do studies, nor do they participate in studies. They only simply put a drug on a list if it's approved for certain. And how did we get into this problem? Well, we got into it because Health Canada left it up to the manufacturers to be responsible for the studies. And didn't that just cause a recent huge problem with OxyContin? So, well, you know, I certainly at the end of all this I have enough for the contents of a book, for sure.
Yeah, really.
And I am interestingly enough, there's a big meeting in Nova Scotia right now, and one of the things they're talking about is provinces joint buying generic drugs. And as I initially discovered, there were people in the United States, in various parts of the United States, paying half of what I was paying. And that's just because the United States has a much larger population. And so when they're buying in larger bulk. And they also probably, some states, as I understand it, may have some joint buying capabilities. So we as a country need to be looking at national pharmacare, and we need to be looking at joint buying. And as I understand it, they're now looking at some generic drugs. That may also be because we're running into worldwide shortages. And part of what may have come into play in my case is that there is a huge morphine shortage at this point worldwide. And that is multi-causal. Is
that because of the OxyContin?
Well, no. Morphine shortages are due to Sandoz, the company that makes it, is doing some retooling. I understand they've had some contamination problems, and there's also some patent pendings worldwide. So there's a whole big shift happening in the international drug market. So
there's a lot of factors in this.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So Suboxone is at least an
See, we never know
alternative.
anything about stuff like this, Emily. We don't. Unless
Well,
somebody
and
like yourself
I
comes
had to
out
learn.
and talks about it.
Well, I also had
Most
to learn.
people can
I didn't
barely
have
read the
much
name
choice.
on the thing, you know,
Yeah.
or the one underneath the title.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do now?
Well, I mean, I obviously need to send out some big letters.
And thank you very
yous.
much from both Mr. Bevington and myself. We're here for you.
Yeah, well, one of the other things, like little things, like Shoppers Drug Mart on their own did some research and discovered that although my insurer, although I was taking 8 milligrams of Suboxone twice a day, I was getting it in 2 milligram tablets. So I was having to take an awful lot of pills a day, and it was an awful lot of packaging. And so the pharmacist made some phone calls, and once I started paying for it on my own, she said, look, if we move you over to the 8 milligram tablets, that'll bring your costs down tremendously. So that really helped. So I ended up just breaking the tablets in half, and that worked very well. So they, on their own initiative as well, have contacted Health and said, look, it's silly that they have just approved paying, because it's twice the cost. And so if they would just approve me for the 8 milligram tablets, that brings their cost down substantially.
Which should be an
But
issue
again,
with government.
I've gained enormous respect for Shoppers Drug Mart and Yellowknife and Daryl Dawley. They have invented a method of, as I understand it, they are the only Shoppers Drug Mart in Canada that has to dedicate several staff to simply doing the paperwork to make sure that people who are insured by extended health care get their medication on time and that it's paid for. And I mean, it's
Yeah,
taken
because
an
people
awful
just
lot of
think,
work.
oh, it's nothing, but it's
Well,
not
it is.
true. It's a lot of paperwork.
And
yeah.
as I understand it, Daryl Donnelly takes an awful lot of heat from his head office for this, but he's learned over time that it certainly is cost effective. And we're a very small territory, a very small population, and a vast, vast coverage area. So, I mean, I have enormous respect for that they manage to do it every month. And I'm so grateful. There's so many people.
You were looking for work before. You were taking
was.
time off to work on this.
I was.
How do you feel about it now?
Well, this has given me the opportunity to really sit down and think about what my next year is going to look like. So I had a discussion with my doctor, and I think what we decided is that I still have to deal with these skin issues, and they could become
annoying?
Well, they're worse than annoying. I mean, I recently just picked up quite a bad infection and ended up on an IV antibiotic for the first time in 30 years. So obviously I have open skin cracks and open area for infection. So I have to be really, really careful. And so we're going to monitor that. And now I have 12 full months to really focus on rebuilding the muscle, get out to the track 3 times a week, paddle my canoe, build those muscles, and really recover. And instead of constantly worrying about raising the money and fundraising, the fundraising that I do now, and you know, when people buy or
the thing is, you know, your money that you get from CPP, at least now you can spend it on food and lodgings and whatever you need, you know.
Yeah. So at least now
awesome.
my fundraising will focus on, I haven't been back to Edmonton in almost over a year now, and I really need to go back and do a follow-up walk study, and they'll be able to measure what kind of improvement. So that'll be also very important data for what we look at next July.
Wow.
So
I've got a busy year.
I've got a year to focus on getting my son through his last year of high school.
Let's say we do an update every 3 months with
Awesome.
you. But what we're going to do now
Yeah.
is we're going to say thanks and congratulations to you.
And there are 2 other things I needed to say.
All right, go for it.
The one thing I did learn in a very big way is that the bottom line is the Canadian Charter, which we all kind of looked at it, but have you ever read the booklet? I read it cover to cover because I had to. And I learned that the Canadian Charter actually trumps all human rights. So under Section 7 and 15, those were very important sections that came into play in my human rights issue. And in the end, that will be, you know, that will come out. So that was very, very important to learn. And I hope that I'm not the tip of the iceberg. I hope that
opens doors for others.
Well, I do. But I also think that, you know, I've heard people complain about Yellowknife statin. There was something in the paper the other day, and I'm so grateful. You know, I recently was in Ontario and got an infection, needed an IV, and I needed to access hospital services in Ontario. And, you know, people forget how fortunate we are. We have a great hospital. We have incredible doctors. We have great dedicated nurses. And we really do, for a very small population over a vast, vast area, we deliver pretty good health care. And I'm just so grateful. And I don't expect I don't expect the world. And that's why I was willing to pay for my follow-up trips to Edmonton. That would have been an unreasonable expense for me to expect. I'm chronic, and you know, the healthcare system here has been very, very good to me, and I'm incredibly grateful.
Well, there we go. We got a shout out to the healthcare system.
20 years post-injury.
Thank you, Mr. Minister.
Absolutely. But 20 years post-injury, I needed to reconnect with the researchers, and that just wasn't something that my health
Speaking of
care
research,
plan
let's
could do.
definitely send a shout out to George Lassard, our techie guy,
Totally.
that's taught you how to get on that internet
Absolutely.
and research.
I'm
Maybe I should go
incredibly
there.
great. Well, he also taught me how to build a blog site. So my quilt pictures are up there, and I haven't put the story
Hey, way
up
to
yet.
go. Good stuff.
But
Okay,
I'm
well,
getting
what
there.
we're going to do is
Yeah.
we're going
So
to
thank you
take a
very
little
much.
break.
Yeah.
And we're going to set up so that Emily's son Nick can come back and do 2 tunes for us. And he's the one that's written about his mom's experiences and how he feels, and he's got a CD. And today he brought the guitar in, and we're going to take the break to hook so George can do his thing with the microphones, and we'll be right back. So this is Emily Lawson signing off. I want you back in 3 months to see how
Awesome.
you're doing.
Thank you so much.
We'll be
to
back in a
everybody.
few minutes, folks. You won't see me, you'll just see Nick. Thank
Awesome.
you.
All right. That was.
All right, Nick. Let's just could you strum once or two? Oh, that sounds lovely. I can actually hear it today. And could you voice a couple of words?
Mic check. Mic check.
Check. Should be good. Go for it. Anytime you're ready.
This is a song I wrote for my mom called Western here. It's the first song on the album that I did for her. Yeah, here goes. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't walk west from here. No one can give me a lift. The doctor's word has come, and only you can give the gift. I'm asking, and I'd be grateful if you could write a letter or put my name in your prayers, just until I'm feeling better. Will the church help me out? I got some cloth that I could sell. My bones are getting worse, and I'm going through hell. I can't walk west from here. No one can give me a lift. The doctor's words have come, and only you can give the gift. All the thought put into me has helped me feel a little more. The track is calling my name, and I went back to where I was from. I'm on the road with my friends, felt that there is hope. The chair I sit in is painted gold. I gotta grab a hold of this rope. I can't walk west from here. No one can give me a lift. The doctor's words have come, and only you can give the gift. I can't walk west from here. No one can give me a lift. The doctor's words have come, and only you can give the gift. One more time. I can't walk west from here. No one can give me a lift. The doctor's words have come, and only you can give the gift.
Yay! What's the next one called, Nick?
I'm gonna do House of the Rising Sun. This is my Yellowknife revamped version.
Okay, so play to the tune of.
Bob Dylan.
All right, let's go, Nick.
Okay.
All right.
1, 2, 3, 4. There is a house in downtown Yellowknife. They're called the Rising Sun, and it's been the ruin of many old and young. Yeah, well, God, He knows that I am one. My mother, she sews each and every day. She sewed me a quilt and all. My father, well, my father, he was a drinking man. Yeah, he would never miss last call. My sister, she loved Mr. Bolio. I was in his luck, he couldn't find true love. I'm feeling sad and alone. Found a place that I could call my own, in that dirty house in Yellowknife. Now all you mothers and brothers in the world, and tell your kids not to do what I have done. They'll spend their life beyond all repair in that dirty house down in Yellowknife. Well, I found myself drinking every day, a runaway rebel with no one to call. I spent 3 long years in that juvenile facility. Yeah, well, they all lived above. When I got out, well, I got high, yeah. I was running through the rivers and the creeks, but I couldn't take it. My mind shifted on me, and the power of God left me be. I'm going But before I do, I'm gonna burn that house to the ground. Yeah, that dirty house in Yellowknife. I'm going back to Yellowknife, the city here. I'm going back to end my life. But before I do, yeah, I'm gonna burn that house down. Yeah, that dirty house down in Yellowknife.
Thank you very much, Nick. That's awesome.
Thank
and
you.
how do you feel about all this?
Uh,
You got a smile on your face?
yeah, I guess. I feel good in a sense, but it's like they're only gonna pay for a year. So what happens at the end of that
no,
year?
they're not. Take my word
That's
for
what they
it.
say
It's
now,
gonna
so,
continue.
yeah.
But you know what? You got to take the positive for right now and build on it for a whole year.
Yeah.
I guarantee all that positive will turn into great energy. And your mom's a great nugget.
Yeah,
Thank you. You'll be back in 3 months and let us know what you're doing.
sure.
School, maybe doing some work.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We're out of here.
Thanks.
Can you pass me my water?